Thank you for the intro. I'm going to try to be a little loud because I know they're loud back there. So I'll try to use the Dominican triple fire sign New Yorker energy. But I'm actually shy despite being a triple fire sign, so it's a lot of work to be here. But my name's Ashley Marie Lagrange. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a therapist and coach, but I'm currently working at the Expansive Group. The Expansive Group is a startup of sorts. We do coaching and therapy for the queer population, a lot of relational work, a lot of sex therapy, but from the jump I have been working with queer folks. I've been working with specifically Black folks and Latina folks. I started off working at a Black maternal wellness clinic, seeing their queer parents, and then I was also working at a queer private practice in Philadelphia because that is where I got my degree. And I'm really big on doing things within the community. So in 2020, I did a peer mental health support initiative because obviously a lot of QTBIPOC folks were struggling in the quarantine period, none of us knowing what the future was going to look like, and also just needing some extra support, especially when community wasn't in person available. So doing that really motivated me to know, like, this is the work I want to do and the population I want to stay with. And I've been fortunate to be doing this for 6 years, and those are the people I still serve. So, yeah. Is this the next slide? No, next slide. So you're gonna see, for those of you at the tables, there are little cardstock papers, there's some scissors, there's I brought very little magazines because I didn't want people to feel inundated with sourcing, but what I provided were little stamp cutouts of different materials. And so I know that I had this slide kind of second, but I encourage y'all to do as you listen, if you feel that is something you like. I know some people are like, I can't multitask, I can't listen to you and do the thing. So if you can, go ahead. If you want to wait till the end, go ahead. I honor whatever your process looks like. But this is a little teaser into kind of how I do collage. And so with the stamps that I cut out, I gave you big circles, little circles, there's some glue, there's some scissors. So you can cut out the shapes if you don't want to just keep it in in circle form. So some prompt examples, right? Just giving you a chance to make a mini collage. Think about, what's your mood right now? I know that some of us work with the feelings wheel. I don't have it on my slides, but if you want to pull up your phone and look at the feelings wheel, sometimes a prompt that I do is asking clients to pick out 3 words that represent how they're feeling and challenging them to just make something with those 3 colors. So if you flip the circles on both sides, there should be different colors. So feel free to play, do what you want sensory-wise. Feel free to rip things up. Feel free to, again, cut it up, whatever your heart desires. Yeah, just free flow. So this is a little bit of my own personal background of how I got into the work that I do. So this photo, the cat pointer, as it was introduced, this is actually a photo of me presenting at the People's Forum. I've been doing monthly workshops at the People's Forum for maybe 2 years now. I do Collage Liberation. I teach about agitation propaganda and how historically with Riot Girls and postcards, a lot of folks have been able to essentially, one, just archive history, but also rewrite history in many ways through, playing with paper, playing with media, being able to transmute their emotions and feelings about kind of the content that they see in the media that they consume. And a lot of my workshops at the People's Forum just really look at what kind of stories we can tell. But before I was a therapist, before I was a collage artist, I was just a girl. And I was just a girl who loved to journal. And so this image that I'm kind of circling right now is, I have a journal for almost every year of my life, multiple journals sometimes, since 2013. So I'm almost on, 13 years of journaling. And I didn't realize what I was doing is now called junk journaling until junk journaling became a trend. But yeah, in these journals, I have always archived my life, receipts, tickets, what's happening, what's going on in my head. And the reason I turned to journaling first and foremost was because I was a youth who was really struggling with their mental health. Growing up in a multi-generational Dominican household, I was not privy to conversations about wellness and mental health, and I really had to self-advocate. I'm very transparent about the fact that I live with what I identify as a psychosocial disability. I'm a provider who takes psychiatric medication, and I've been taking it for years now, and it really does save my life day and day again. In addition to therapy, shout out to my therapist, Hannah, and the past providers that I've had. But I was really struggling growing up, and I had to self-advocate. I grew up as an only child, despite me having a robust number of cousins, as many Dominicans do. And I really had to encourage my parents to understand that the help that I needed was something that they couldn't necessarily provide, and that they were not at fault for that, but I just needed additional support. And also my school guidance counselor was like, girl, you can't be coming into my office crying all the time. So I get it. Now I know she was overworked, underpaid, so I'm glad she advocated for herself. But journaling was one of the tools that I used in addition to starting therapy. And I didn't start medication until later in life when I was around 19 years old. So yeah, journaling, arts, creativity was big for me. And as alternative modes of expression, I think it's natural for creative people to endeavor into different realms. And so here are some other things that I've done that I have found really therapeutic as well. So actually at the People's Forum, I took a free screen printing class. They still do those, so People's Forum, I'm plugging it for classes. This is actually a screen print that I made after a session with a client that I had been working with long term, and them expressing to me, like, Ashley, like, when I come to you during my hardships, I feel like I'm disappointing you, like, that I'm not succeeding in my recovery, or that I'm not healing, I'm not progressing. And so I thought of in that moment I had told them, like, I want to see you succeed, but I'm not only here to witness you in success. I commit to witnessing all of you. And so I made that screen print. At the People's Forum, they also had a letterpress workshop, which is like the OG newspapers, individual silver, letter pressing. And me and my partner actually affectionately tell each other, I love past, present, future you. So I made this little postcard. I've also gotten to lino cut. Lino cut is kind of a form of stamping, and in Spanish I wrote resist apathy. And then in addition to collage doesn't have to stop there. There's so much you can do with collage. And so I'm an analog girly. I like to use my hands. I like to rip up paper. But I've turned some of my physical collages into digital collages. So here's a photo of my father and I that I kind of ripped apart and scanned and did stuff with. And then here's a collage that I also made that I turned into a cyanotype, which is a type of chemical printing, and I cyanotyped it onto this really beautiful fabric. So these are just a multitude of ways that I express myself, in addition to things like flower arrangement classes, which I talked to someone about, jewelry making, silversmithing, I just like to play, so yeah. I think the biggest thing for me about collage is that it's storytelling. Some people look at collages and are like, what is that? What is that trying to say? And sometimes it's not meant for you to read. Sometimes it's not meant for you to understand. Sometimes it's just about the creator and the story they're trying to tell and what they're trying to release. And so I think in my work, especially with the QTBIPOC population, there are so many stigmas, ideals pushed onto us that we are constantly having to redefine. We're having to grieve certain definitions, certain experiences, rewrite them for ourselves, and then, what do we do with that grief, or how do we envision the next step? And so for me, I'm really big on stories, our views, our narratives, and narratives can show us what we want to focus on. So for example, I think many folks can relate, especially in client work, given the times we're in. We're back to that really heinous 2000s anemia, just like eating disorder trends, right? So what does it mean for some of my clients to be consuming content about weight loss and fad diets, and here's a TikTok shop selling me the 5th workout equipment that I can fold to fit under my bed and make it convenient and all of these things, right? Like, what does it mean to maybe make a piece processing our relationship to our weight and our bodies during a time where our bodies are constantly being attacked? So things like that. But collage can be used for a bunch of things. Processing, mixed media connecting. I kind of talk about this in my People's Forum workshop, where historically, especially in Latin America, people would send each other mail to kind of show each other, like, look at how much eggs are here, look at how much gas is here, look at all of these things. And then they would create collage to like subvert that media. And so there's so much that you can do with collage. And something I also love to do is image remaking. Sometimes I will take images of my loved ones who are no longer with me, and I will spend time with them by recreating that photo or creating around that photograph. And so for me, it's like they're not here with me, but I'm still spending time with them and creating a new memory with them. So there's an abundance of things that we can do, and I'm really big on letting folks know that collage is so accessible because there's no wrong way to do it. I often, when I facilitate workshops, people are like, this felt so childlike, this felt so free, and I think that's exactly what I want folks to tap into, that intuition, that creativity, and knowing that a collage can stop with you pasting 2 things, or you can paste 500 things. It really is up to you to create that flow. So here are some collages that I have made. So the top left is just an image that reminded me of growing up in Queens, New York, Corona, Queens particular, off the 7 train, and thinking about some of the women that I grew up seeing, especially around Jackson Heights, and just kind of honoring my neighborhood. In the middle, I created this collage kind of representing the audacity that eggs are like $15 or whatever they are. And like at this point, it feels like, yeah, they're hijacking us, and yeah, why are cigarettes and eggs like the same cost? That's ridiculous. This bottom middle piece I made in the quarantine period of COVID. And right, we were literally in a state of flux. I was like, what's going on? Will I be able to see my mom? Because I was still in Philadelphia and I didn't know, like, are there gonna be state border closures, etc. The image on the bottom left is me processing who are our land tenders, who are the people who are touching our food before it gets to us and our tables and our stores, and really thinking about like, yeah, farmers and farmers' rights and just like generationally, ancestrally, who is tending to the land. This top right image is actually one of those image remaking moments. It is a photo of my godmother, Daisy Gomez, and a photo of her on a balcony that I recreated to look like another image of her that I had in my childhood. That is a photo of her in the back of my grandparents' house in DR with the plantain tree. And so in finding this new image, I wanted to recreate my favorite image in a way. And funnily enough, my mommy D is what I called her. She had pothos plants growing up. So I have a lot of pothos plants, and so I incorporated some dying pothos plants into my collage. So also thinking about how you can use nature and texture and different materials. And this bottom right image was when the queen died, and I was like, fuck her and the way she got her jewels. So that was me processing that. As I said, you know, in my class that I teach, collage can be used as political processing. I made this collage up here at a residency that I was at, and I was just processing kind of like state of the world. This was a year ago. But historically, we are used to seeing propaganda everywhere, right? This is the Bolshevik propaganda train where they would put ads and paintings for people to look at and all cultivate thinking and critical thinking and conversation. We see that all the time in New York, all the ads they put in the MTA. Why did I see a train that was covered in like, visit the Dominican Republic, palm tree? I was like, wow, that's such a cute train. And then I was like, ooh, tourism, that's not what I'm looking for. And just a little silly haha, right? Like, this is an example of someone doing a digital collage. This is an example of like relevant media that like is historically relevant. So it is silly haha, but also it says something about where we're at. Here are some more examples of politicized collage. So some art from Chile around contraception and like reproductive justice, an image from New York around disability rights and justice, and this image over here around the economy and all of the companies that have monopolized credit and, you know, who is impacted by that and who are they, you know, restructuring the economy around. These are other examples of image remaking. So the one I shared before of my mommy D, and this is completely analog. This is a photo I found, and I didn't want to ruin the photo, so I literally just built the collage around it, and this is my only copy of it. And then here's an image of my grandmother, Amparo Espaillat, who immigrated to New York City, and this was her like citizenship card, and I created an image for her, and it's actually featured in Womanly Magazine's The Future is Fat edition. This image is titled My First Known Fat Ancestor. And then this is also archival stuff. So this is, for me, honoring myself and other spaces I've facilitated. I actually, a year ago, was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea, which, thank God I got my CPAP machine because I needed it. But I've always been a sleepy girl. Both my parents suffer from insomnia, I do too. And so in kind of like receiving my CPAP machine, I had a lot of processing to do around what does it mean to be a person who's gonna need this medical device moving forward, and honoring just my relationship to rest. So a little collage of sleepy me, and then a collage of me as a kid and needing to trust the process. That little kid right there was struggling with their mental health, and that struggle turned into disordered eating, self-injurious behavior, unknown manic episodes, tumultuous interpersonal connections, and by finding my art practice, I was able to let off steam and not project onto everybody, which was definitely needed. And these are just some examples of prompts that I give. I'm gonna be honest, when I do workshops, like, I'm very hands-off because I know that I can spend an hour alone just picking out the stuff I want to paste. But I like to help people, you know, envision a little. So I said the thing about the feelings wheel and utilizing the colors. Sometimes I say create a visual representation of what the world will look like when we win the revolution. Create a collage representing your experience of loss or grief of a person, a place, or this land. And also just letting folks know that, like, you can get supplies on the stoop. People are always putting out books and magazines, eBay, your Facebook marketplace, neighborhood, buy nothing. Libraries sometimes give away things, but also you can have alternatives by doing digital collage and finding resources, right? This was made on Canva. You can make things on Canva. That's usually what I suggest for my digital online workshops. So these are just some resources. I just wanted to come up and talk about how much I love collage. There's two books here, actually. There's Black Collages, the book, curated by Terry Henderson, and I'm featured in that book with a bunch of amazing other Black collage artists. And that project falls under the umbrella of a couple that actually are social workers and collage collectors, and they made this book called Collage Care, and that book is full of prompts. So if folks want to go through that and like look at it, I have a lot of Post-its in there. But collage can be such a freeing, expressive, fun, playful, connective thing you can do amongst all ages, gender, races. It doesn't require language. It is just doing and being. So yeah, I love collage, and some resources, right? I said eBay, I said the library, but some artists that I really love who I think also show narrative through their art: Britt Cheetah, Nafisa Firdas, my friend Malika, who's offering rain, who's a really dope artist who makes music and is Indian and Ecuadorian in New York City and kind of makes music around identity. Cliche the artist way, but you know, gotta plug that. Collage Care. I say letterbox because for those of us who aren't so into movies, like my partner loves movies, and movies just evoke so much. They inspire so much. And so even knowing that like you can make digital collages out of some of the stills from some films, right? Things like that. And yeah, that's my presentation.